Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing today? My name is RODGON. Gotta test out what pens still work. This one's done. All right. How are you doing today? Welcome back. Welcome back. We are putting the finishing touches in our sketchbook today. And I welcome you guys to join us or join me as I go in and I do little edits. I add little corrections and I make sure that all my drawings look pretty by putting post-its and covering things up. So yesterday technically we finished the sketchbook. Yesterday was July 6th and we just ended up with a really big bang. So we ended up drawing some cute characters from boxes. I taught you guys how to draw everything from a box, everything, even including dolphins and stuff like that. So you guys named things, I drew them. You guys wanted a marshmallow man, I drew a marshmallow man. And then I taught you guys a couple things from volume, movement, body structure, and then just overall how to draw things in 3/4 and stuff like that. So it was a beautiful stream. It was really, really nice. And today, we get to fill up the rest of the book, honestly. Every little tiny nuance in space that I have, I like to fill up. It's just something that goes along with being proud of what I do. And that includes spending time doing things like this. This is also how I build my mental library, by the way. If you guys are wondering how and why I am able to draw absolutely like everything in the like kitchen table and not really be like concerned or stressed out about it, it's because I spend my days drawing random stuff that I know that I'll eventually need to use. So if I were to, for example, like I need to draw plants, I would spend all day drawing plants, right? I would not do anything except draw plants for an entire day to get used to how those plants work, how they look, how they work, how they feel, how I can represent them easy. And then I would move on to things like bushes. How can I represent that texture without it being too messy? How can I represent different types of bushes differently, right? Then you move on to things like trees. And trees will always be super fun to draw because trees have literally no real like shape. They're like fluid. It's like fluid solid. Like it's weird. It's like they all look like they're melting. They look like they're twisting. They look like they're going in different directions. And your job as an artist is to just represent the flow of the tree bark. And if you can do that and understand how branches work, how leaves work, how things that drape over them, like vines, things like that, how it has depth. It's not just all going in one direction. Some of it is going backwards. Some of them is going in XYZ direction. They're not just all top based, right? So when you understand little nuances like that, you end up understanding how simple and direct we normally approach things. Because a lot of the times we just think about trees like this, right? A lot of the times, even when we're drawing complicated things, like our trees have a very simple structure and it works. Something like this would be really nice to be able to draw a little story or whatever. But if you take that and then you just change the direction of it being like a mushroom, right? But you change it and the mushroom changes direction, then you end up getting a little bit more dynamic tree. It might not be all canopy, but you can see a little bit more of the branches underneath. Maybe the shot is from underneath, so you need that shot because the character is gonna be like looking up or whatever. You know, like any of those situations where you need a shot where the tree is not necessarily standing up straight, or the branches aren't completely straight, or not just the canopy isn't like that, it's to the side, because a lot of trees have sideways canopies, right? Not every tree has a top level canopy like that. Some of them have several ones. Then the roots that go into the ground, they spread, kind of like the tentacles. So understanding that is kind of cool, because you understand that one little like line of trees could be all growing from the same root system. So if you start thinking about more than just one single element, you can start thinking of the whole environment as one individual single shape. Now, this is complex, and this is not something that you can just pick up and do because you feel like it. It's something that you have to go out and live your life. You need to go out into the wild, and you need to go and draw things like plants and trees and flowers and shit, just so that you get and understand, even if it's rudimentary stuff. Like, even if you start with just simple stuff like that. Little circles and like the little butterfly flowers. You guys know how to make butterfly flowers? So you make a fat butterfly, and then you add some more elements. And then you have little butterfly flowers. You can start with something like that, right? When you start adding a little bit more depth and you start understanding a little bit more about like each individual petal and stuff like that, each one of these is going to have detail. And then you're going to find that there's layers to these, right? And then those layers get like tied in with like other types of layers of like textures and stuff. So little by little, you start understanding by observation. But if you don't observe, if you don't go out into nature and you look at things, you'll never get that, because people don't explain this. When you look at a book and it's like, ooh, how to draw eyes, they'll tell you the basic concept of how to draw an eye, but they won't tell you, okay, look at the outside edge of the eye. It's going to be a little darker. When the light hits it, it's going to reflect a certain way. When you look to the side, you're going to see a certain way. When you look in the front, you're going to look differently. Little things like that are more and easier learned through observation and just a very basic sense of knowledge. So if you understand that an eye is round, right? An eye is round and it has 2 circles inside. Okay, so that's an eye, right? That's the shape of the eye. That is an eye completely open, like no eyelids. When we add an eyelid, you add an eye plus 2 lines. Circle, 2, 1, 2. So you have 2 lines, one long one or one overlapping one, and then one intersecting one. So an eye is that plus 2 lines. Now, if we wanted to add more detail, it would involve learning a little bit more about anatomy. Eyelashes flow forward, right? So understanding this involves a little bit of perspective. If you think about your eye now, that's 2 lines, and you want eyelashes, you need to fan them out. So from the outside edges, it fans out, and then you end up just having to trace that. You can choose the width of each one of these to be different, and the width of the actual connection point with your eyelid is going to be a little bit thicker, because makeup does that. It gunks up. Then the bottom lid would also have a little bit, but not as much as the top, and then you would have your 2 circles. Cool. So now you know how to draw an eye with relatively decent eyelids. So when you draw your eye, a circle, 2 circles inside, 2 curvy lines, and the fan, well, with that alone, you have the ability to draw yourself pretty much any eye you want. Okay? Even if it's the most simplistic looks. you'll be able to draw them, even with a lot of detail, with little detail, whatever. So now that you know that 3 circles, 2 lines, and a fan produce an eye, well, let's try to apply that to an actual character. We'll start a head, we'll draw an eye, we'll draw this eye, and then we'll do 1 long line that overlaps, 1 shorter line that intersects, 2 circles, and a little fan if I want my eyelids or my eyelashes. I can use that little fan to find out where my eyebrow is going to be as well. So that serves 2 purposes. So at the bottom end, it's your eyelids, right? Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. And at the top end, it's your eyebrow. So if you just learn to draw 2 lines and a fan, you have access to pretty much every styling that you want, because eyes are very similar in every single style that you want to put. You just have to choose what type of line you want for your style on the top, and you can... What are you doing? You guys want to see Mustache? Mustache! He's so fucking cute. He just took the carpet and he made himself a little fort. Wow. That little dog is adorable. I win the bowl too. Anyways, the eye is very easy to understand. Circle, 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 line, line, fan. I know it seems like a lot of steps, but it really isn't. It's gonna end up being like this when you guys end up drawing. It's 2 lines, because you're gonna end up not drawing the circle after a while. And then you're gonna draw a little box. Ta-da! And then you'll know that this is the flow of your eyelids. So it just comes naturally after a little bit. You just have to practice it maybe like a month of just constantly analyzing it so that you can actually understand that concept a little more. But sooner or later, you'll be able to do all this stuff really easy. Yeah, and then when you start drawing things like profiles, right? Like, let me show you guys eyes in all views. So from the front, your curve at the peak of your eye is gonna be in the middle, right? For 3/4, that peak is gonna be slightly here. So the peak of your height is gonna be right there. What happens in a profile? When a profile, the peak is at the side. So, and you only see about half the eye, so you only reach about halfway. So, so essentially, it's not really all that difficult to think about this structure and then add going around my shape. So, check it out. Circle, dot, dot. I'm gonna go around my sphere. Okay? And then I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna make the top one darker, maybe towards the ends a little bit more, so that it gives you a little eyelash. And then, ta-da, we have yourself your eye. Now, if we want a 3/4 eye, we move that to the side, we draw all these things here, and then we go from the side, and it's not all the way to the edge anymore, it's about a little bit closer, and it's gonna be a little bit inside on this side, right? Because it goes in. So if these 2 points, this moves up and this moves down, we end up with these 2 marks right there. Okay? So we go here, and we go around and touch the other one. So now we have roundness to this. what happens in a profile. In the profile, the edge is right here, but then my points, I'm gonna shift it slightly so you guys see the point. One's gonna be right here, and the other one would be really close to it, but I'm gonna shift it a little bit up so you guys see what's going on. You go from this point to this point, going around your shape. And then you intersect the bottom line. You go around, and you have yourself your eye. This ends up being your upper eyelid because the rest of your eyeball is the upper eyelid. And at the top of that upper eyelid is your eyebrow. So you'll know where your eyebrow is. Doesn't matter what angle you're looking at. The reason that you see a little bit different with your noses is because your nose blocks a little bit of that upper second eye. But it's approached the same way. You just see a little bit less of it. So it shouldn't be as complicated as we make it out to be sometimes, you know? When you're drawing 3/4 faces, you can draw 2 circles, draw your eyes with 2 lines, draw your style, and then figure out what part of the face the nose is gonna block. Construction and form before style. Okay? If you guys just understand those basic concepts, you guys will be in a much better position. And even when you're drawing things in different perspectives. Let's see, let's look up a little bit. Okay? The more we look up, the more of the bottom we see of our jaw. When we're looking up, I still draw my 2 lines. This other one's going around, but you wouldn't see much of the other one because the nose is blocking it. Okay? So when you're looking up, your lines shift a little bit up. Why? Well, you can do it with a basic circle. Your curvature goes around, right? So things like a smile and stuff like that end up being a little bit less curvy up than you think. Because as you curve up, right, a normal line like this ends up being curvy down. If you have a line that's curving up, it's gonna be a little bit flatter. So it's not as accentuated up as you think whenever you rotate. As you rotate, the lines distort because it's round, right? It's a little bit more round than we think in the front of our face. So a lot of the times that distortion is what messes with our perception of the features. That happens a lot when we rotate our heads up, right? So when we have our head, and we have our chin, and we have our ears, and we have our nose, okay? The nose will be like this. Now, when we rotate the chin up, we don't know how to connect it for some reason. And that's super weird to me because it's literally just connecting the bottom of the ear to the bottom of the chin. Let's move this to where this is, right? Bottom of the ear, bottom of the chin. Connect the ears to the bottom of the neck. You move the nose up, and now you have a more upward view. When you see this happening side by side to something, you end up going like, oh shit, okay, that makes sense. So now we have another neck, right? We're gonna do bottom of the neck, move it up, move it up, move it up. See how it just goes bottom? And the ear ends up rotating too, by the way, as you go up. So your nose, your mouth, your chin is just a matter of connecting 2 points. Because you were doing, I stream all the time. I stream at all points. I stream whenever I'm bored. Because you were doing a stream at 3 in the morning. Yeah, I stream whenever I'm bored. So whenever I have a chance to, I just sit here and I start drawing with you guys. I love doing it. It's something that makes me really happy. So it's something that I try to do as much as I can. So if I'm here at 3 in the morning, do you guys get a lesson or a little sketch session at 3 in the morning? If I'm here at 8 in the morning, you guys get me at 8. So it's normally something that I like to change up too, because then other people get to see and be with like this. It's not like I love my normal audience, so I try to be here all the time at the same time, but I try to also be here at different times so that other people might get to enjoy a little bit of what we do. I wish I was up at 3. You could. I mean, if you wish it, it's something that you want to do. You should be able to just do it. But not saying that you should do it just to stay up and draw with me. That's crazy. Joey Nipples. Sup, player? How you doing, my friend? How you doing, gangster? I would die at work, would be fun. Oh, Gabby. I like the enthusiasm, though. I like the enthusiasm. I'm well, Mang looks well good all over there. Thanks. I appreciate it. Oh, man. Oh, you're so sweet. Oh. Oh, you. Greetings from Mexico. Greetings. Saludos. Could you show how the ears would rotate with the head? Yeah. So, okay. So let's see. We have our head. We have our chin and we have our ears. Our ears would normally be pointing down or like this, pointing up, if our head is pointing this way, right? That's just natural. As our head rotates up, this is going to flip. This will eventually point down. And in between, you would have an in between. So if this is the max in one way and this is the max in the other, the in between has to be there. So when you draw a character that has their chin right there, bottom of the ear, bottom of the chin, bottom of the ear. The side of your head is always going to be determined with a circle. And putting in your features is just a matter of practice. So understanding that your head rotates and therefore other elements rotate is very important to understand. Do you draw on an iPad? Well, I mean, I have an iPad. I draw on an iPad. I was drawing a Misty yesterday. You guys want to see it? I'm going to show you guys my Misty so far. It's coming out pretty cool. So far we have Misty with the Ouroboros tattoo, with the Heart of the Ocean stone, Togepi, her tan lines, my own little Pokemon that I created. And then we went and did tattoos on her. So we have been putting an Orca, an Eel, a Starmie, a little cuttlefish, a blowfish, her side dog, some jellyfish, a tugapee, the symbol for the water nation, shark, Kirby, Triforce, Mario landscape, little sunset, and me. Dragon Ball, and yeah. Oh, and her master ball. Yes, he's the master of balls. Oh, grown up Misty. So, anyways, that's Misty. And if you guys were wondering if I draw in my iPad, do I draw in my iPad? I think I do. Yeah, well, I'm drawing the characters that I used to like when I was younger. And Misty was a character crush that I had when I was like, when I was like 10? Like 8? And that was like when I was at that age. So as Misty grew up with me, I aged her with me. I did that for Velma as well. I always thought Velma was cute. I saw Phil Tomato make like a draw this in your style thing. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I gotta do that too. And I did a really, really, really cute Velma. And a Daphne. I did Scooby-Doo too. Let's see. Have you guys ever seen Walk Fu? Walk Fu is so cool. Did we decide on a name for the platypus? No, we did not. We did not come up with a name for Mr. Platypus. The platypus that I drew, essentially he's going to be a ghost-type Pokemon. He's going to have candles for 2 little horns. He's going to have his little beak. Right? And he's going to have big eyes. And then he's going to have a Dia de los Muertos type of pattern to him. He's going to be a Dia de los Muertos platypus. And I don't know what his powers are going to be. Maybe he like shoots out ghosts or something. But yeah, his little body is going to be like that of a platypus. I always thought that it was kind of a waste that they haven't made a platypus Pokemon. That I know of, at least. I'm not really aware of the later generations. Maybe they did make one. But I want a Dia de los Muertos little platypus with a little spine and little bones. I remember I was going to be ghost or poison. No, it's going to be a ghost poison because they do have poison barbs, but I just don't know what his powers and abilities will be. Cubone? No, not Cubone. Cubone's story is too sad. It's too sad. It's like he loses his mom and then he wears the skull of his mom. That sounds so sad. Okay, so let's see. What else did we learn in this sketchbook? What did we learn? What did we focus on? This whole sketchbook was mostly about movement and learning the structure and the flow of the body. Most of this sketchbook was in understanding the human structure to a more heavy extent. So the purpose was to understand so that I could start using my anatomy to be able to tell stories, right? If I just draw anatomy and I don't really focus on movement, I can't tell stories if I don't know how to move my character. It's just a very basic concept of illustration. If your character is stiff, you can't be telling a story. It's just a mannequin. So instead of just drawing mannequins, I want to be able to tell characters that have personalities and stories. So my focus on this whole sketchbook was to be able to simplify the body to a point where I could just focus on my stories instead of focusing on where things go, how things are pointed, how things are moved. Like if I want an upward shot, I should be able to just move it up. I want to move it down, I can get a downward shot. If I want an epic, really cool pinup, I can do that. If I want a dynamic little whale, I can do that. It's a matter of just being able to move characters around in space and being able to do things with them that I haven't been able to do before. Okay, so that is the whole purpose of this sketchbook. So let's try to see what we learned and what we maximized, okay? Sugar bomb as a power. Oh, that'd be kind of cute. Like sugar skulls. He just shoots sugar skulls from his like mouth. Okay, so in this sketchbook, we refined the box technique for the faces. So what is the box technique? Well, it's the concept of focusing on the two parts of your head that don't flex, right? It's your eye sockets, the top of your head, and your nose canal. If you can focus on those three elements before you go into your jaw, you end up with a much easier way to understand how your body parts are mapped out. Understanding the bottom of your structure is as easy as just drawing a little teardrop from that triangle. And that gives you access to a mouth space and your chin. And we want to connect your jaw structure, your cheekbones here, to the chin. And you end up with a more easy to see, like understandable way of approaching your drawings. Not just that, it also gives you your hairline. So if this is the top of your head, you just have to draw some hair. Ta-da! So it's really, really easy to be able to generate a multitude of characters from just a box by knowing the placements of things. A box with a bigger teardrop will give you a much bigger structure, so you can draw characters that have a more commanding presence physically, like something like superheroes or the Hulk or something. Okay, if you want something that has more of a chibi look, you do the same box, you can do the same proportions, and just make a little tiny teardrop. And you're gonna have yourself a more young or character that you can use for a younger thing. Exactly the same approach, just differently used. You can do this as well for things like adorable little animals. Like the little pandas and the little things that I draw. So being able to use the same method for a variety of things is incredibly useful. You can do this for every single type of drawing that you want to do. It's going to simplify your life so much. And when you want to add depth to these, you add a little circle that matches the size of the box. So when you have the box and you have your features, yay, right? If you want to add a 3/4, add a circle that matches these two circles. And then you have yourself width. If you do that and you keep it nice and even between these two, right? So let's say that you have this and you divide this into 3 because the front of the face is 2 parts and the side of the face is 1. Imagine that you just keep that same ratio, but you squish one and you make one bigger and you have yourself different views. Okay? Just change the size of one of them. So if you want a little bit less of a side, cool. Same ratio, it's still 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You just get to choose what ratio you want for your character. right? So understanding a little box can help you understand how to draw a variety of things that maybe were hard for you before. How do I get into concept art and character design? Okay, so I'm going to give you a simple exercise. Okay, I'm going to give you a simple exercise that if you can master this little simple exercise, you're on the right route to being able to be a character designer. And this little test, or whatever you want to call this, I call it Mr. Globy. Mr. Globy. Okay, Mr. Globy is a very simple test. You draw a character out of a ball, right? Out of a ball with 2 arms, 2 legs, and you give him a little face. Mr. Globy is just a globe, right? He's very simple. Now, if you can tell stories with Mr. Globy, you will be able to tell stories with more complicated shapes. So if you can make them sad, if you can make them happy, if you can make them buying groceries, you know, anything like that. Give them hats, make them smile, make them cry, make them jump. If you're able to make a Mr. Globy come alive, when it comes down to your other characters, when you get better, you're going to be able to implement all those things that you did with Mr. Globy onto a much more complicated shape. Much easier. Because learning posing and stuff like that is more about just understanding how the flow of your body works. And I don't mean like action lines. No, I don't mean action lines at all. Okay? Your body has a certain flow. And that means that if you look at your body, your arms will go from one side of your rib cage to the other. If you remove the elements like your head and your shoulders and stuff like that, your arms go from one side to the other, and then they generate volume by connecting back to your body. If you do that, you can move that in a variety of positions, and it's always going to look like it fits. You can move them inside, you can move them outside, you can overlap them, you can twist them. As long as you understand where they come from, it becomes a lot easier to make more complicated body parts. Okay? So understanding how to draw your arms is no harder than just tracing a little line over a circle and then connecting it back to the circle. When you decide that you want to make more complicated arms, the concept still applies. Only you have different elements like hands, arms, stuff like that, and muscles that complicate the system a little bit more. But the actual system is the same thing. Regardless of how you see it, it's going to flow from the top of your body, and then it's going to connect back into your body. The legs are very similar. The legs. Are you sleeping or are you like choking? What are you doing? I'll leave you in your cave. Easy when you know how I find this amazing. Okay, so the bottom. Okay? The bottom part of the body is going to be very similar. Instead of going sideways though, like the arms, you're going to go down. So you're going to go down and you're going to connect back up. When you connect these two systems, you end up with very, very easy bodies to do. Now, if you just do 2 circles and you overlap them like a beanbag, and you focus on the bottom part going like this and the upper part going like this, you end up with a very easy body system that can be added to be able to create your characters. And then when you start rotating the body parts, you won't feel incredibly overwhelmed when you try to do something that is a little bit different than the body poses you were used to, right? You'll be able to move your character around by just knowing how to move body flow. All you need is to know 2 circles and how your body flow works. And that's all you really need to be able to draw bodies a little bit more easy. Outside, inside. When you're looking at like this, it could be either one, but outside, inside. The egg and the compass. Exactly. That's the other way that we can see it. The egg is the upper body, right? And then if you have your lines going like this, you need your head space, and this magically turns into like a little compass. So the egg is the rib cage. The compass is gonna be your shoulders and the direction of your arm. This is the outside of your body. This becomes the inside. So you go outside, inside, and then you overlap lines to create that. Outside, inside. Oh, you want the arm pointing down? Okay. Outside, inside. The only time that this really changes is when you need to point your arms up. When you need to point your arms up, that compass has 2 points, right? One of them can stay this way. The other one can point up. Ta-da! Ta-da! So this arm can limit itself to here or anything underneath. If you need your arm up, you need to move that compass up so that everything moves up with it. So your compass is gonna point to where your arm is gonna go. Okay? And then you bring it in to the egg to create the depth you need for your arm. So you go boom, boom. If you want to rotate your body, just rotate the compass. It's very intuitive actually. And then when you are seeing it with detail, let me show you what it looks like when you have detail. You're essentially using this as your collarbone, right? This is gonna be the connecting point with your shoulder. So if your arm comes out from there, then your shoulder wraps around. Then from there to the middle of your rib cage, there's the egg right there. You come up and you connect this as your pectoral muscle. So you have your collarbone, your shoulder, your pectoral muscle. Then from there, you're gonna draw your shoulder and you're gonna draw your upper part of your arm. Your forearm wraps around your bicep and it comes down. So it wraps around the bicep like imagine it's like a little fish and it's eating something, like a snake or something, like a fish or something. And it's eating the bicep. Okay, that is how your arm wraps around your forearm. So you have your bicep, you have your forearm that wraps around, and then you have your arm. You have your tricep in the back. Okay, so that's kind of what's going on right there. The muscle is actually wrapping around like this, and then you have bone structures. It's wrapping around the front and the back end of your bicep. But when you're actually just drawing, you want to have your forearm. You want to have your bicep in between your forearm. So you wrap it around like that. And then your shoulder splits everything in half. As you unfold, this little overlapping line needs to be there. So you have your bicep, you have one line on this side, one line on the other, down to your forearm. And that's kind of how your arm is like separated. In the most simple terms, of course. When you bend it. So yeah. I have to make like a more like in-depth arm tutorial at some point. But for now, you guys, that should be enough. Oh, man. Oh, how are you guys doing today? How's your Sundays? Yeah, but Mr. Globy is a really good test. This Mr. Globy test is going to be like, it's a gigantic stepping stone for people because a lot of people don't really know how to even rotate like a face around the sphere. Like they don't even know how to use guidelines, really. Right? So this is a big test to be able to see if you know how to use guidelines, if you know how to bring elements out of basic shapes, if you know a little bit about perspective so that you can move things in and out, behind, forward, and then overlapping lines to be able to give it things like, I don't know, glasses or whatever. If you want to make a move, you need to know how to move these elements around from their pivot points. Right? Their pivot points are the connecting points. These don't move. The little points on these characters, if you have a character that's kind of like this, these little magical circles don't really move from their spots, right? They don't. What moves is the element that you put inside. Like if you put a little cylinder, you can move that little cylinder in space. You can move it up, you can move it down, right? This gives you a limitation. This gives you a certain ratio of like movement that you can have. Right? The same thing happens when you draw things that are a little bit more complex, like a real leg. Okay? You have your hip bone, which is your limitation, and then you move your leg around your hip bone to understand how you can move that leg in different positions. So the same thing is going to happen with Mr. Globies. You're going to have to learn to be able to move your character around with very basic connecting points. And again, this very basic character, right, eventually can lead you to understand how a more complex character works later on. Right now, it might just look like a little sphere, but in time, this is going to give you the ability to draw much more complicated things. That's terrifying, by the way. Ooh, educateyourself.org. I don't know what that is, but I like education. Eventually, you'll learn how to move a simple shape masterfully. Once you learn to move very basic shapes in a masterful way, you can start creating more complex shapes by just dividing these into their own separate sections. The legs go on their own, their arms go on their own, and the head is always going to be attached to the rib cage. So from there, you just do the same thing. And then as you add more body parts, you can bend them in different positions, bend them different ways. And by observation and reference at first, you're going to be able to draw much more complicated poses than you can do, but from memory. But eventually in time, you'll be able to take all these poses and refine them minusculely to different things. So you won't need action lines or anything like that. You'll just be able to move your character around to exactly where you need it and create more dynamic poses by simply adjusting where the body part connects. So you don't need the whole fucking, hey, let's draw an action line and let's draw a head and then try to restrict ourselves to this little line. I hate these things. I hate the action line. I hate it. It's such a restrictive way of thinking. Right? And it's never really clear to anybody that really like gets into it. Is it the spine? What the fuck is an action line? Right? Like everybody pretends like they know like what they're talking about when they do that. But what happens with two little parts go into different directions? Do they have two action lines? No, it's supposed to be just one big action line, blah, 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 and then the other ones are supposed to be like secondary action lines. I'm like, dude, no. How about we just like stop worrying about that and then we just learn how to draw the bodies, right? So if we want that shape, oh, this doesn't look right. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna move it. Oh, that doesn't look right. Okay, cool. I'm gonna move it. And then feel comfortable enough doing that so that you can just have fun moving, posing, as if it was like a 3D model. Essentially, that's what you want to get to. You want to get to the point where your character seems so easy to move that it's just like a 3D model that you're moving around. Like, what do I want? I want a Spartan kick. Pow, pow, pow. Oh, but I need to bend the knee a little bit. Oh, I want to cock his arm back. Oh, wait, no, I wanted to punch him forward. You know, I want to be able to do that, even if it gets messy. Because then I can always just go back in with a Post-it, cover it up, it goes set enough, and then I can use that as my sketch, right? Depending on what type of action I chose, maybe I just want him dancing like a ska. Dance. Like whatever it is that you really want to do with your characters, number one is understanding what you're doing, and number two is being able to see it in a way that makes sense to you. Not just trying to be somebody else. Trying to be somebody else is never going to get you the result that you want. Like if you are trying to draw noses like Scott Campbell, or you're trying to draw eyes like Chris Sanders, and like you know the reason that you might not be able to get it as easy is because you didn't really get to understand what they're doing. What they're doing is not based on the most detailed way that they understand the concept. Like I promise you that people like Frank Cho and Scott Campbell, they don't just draw noses like this because that's the only way they know how to draw them. They understand every component of the nose. And then they go, okay, how do I simplify this to an even greater extent? And then they go, okay, if I just make this line, I can represent depth and volume, and how much can I get away with eliminating, creating a style. Now, that, if you just copy it, you're going to think it's just a little soupy. But he is thinking of all the elements surrounding the nose. So he's thinking of all these three-dimensional shapes with volume and stuff. So whenever he lays it down in a simple way, you're seeing a fraction of what he's thinking about. A fraction. So that's why when you copy other people, you're getting a very, very limited sense of what their knowledge is when they're putting that on the actual paper. So if you don't understand how they draw really cool lips and volume like that, well, it's because you might not understand how those overlapping lines work. So you don't know how to create very sexy lips. But these people are doing it in like 2 lines, right? They're just like, oh, well, how can they just draw like a little soupy and it looks like lips? It's because they're thinking of all the elements, the upper lip, the bottom lip, the intersecting lines, the crossover, the overlaps, and then they're just simplifying that to a massive extent. So you see 2 lines, but the person is drawing 17 different parts. It's just different. It's just visualized differently. So therefore, that's why it's really hard for you to maybe understand how they do that. Okay? Simplification is not easy. Simplification, understanding where to put something simple so that it represents depth, is insanely hard. And doing it properly is even harder. It looks simple, but it's insanely difficult to do it properly. So now, the reason that I respect cartoonists and animators and stuff like that a lot more than I do fucking like photorealism and stuff like that is because you don't have a roadmap for cartooning. Like, there is examples that you can take. You can take references from other people, like Tex Avery, Looney Tunes, stuff like that, and like learn all the way that they did that stuff. Right? You're like, oh, cool, they did this, and they learned like this. So you're you're replicating a style. So instead of understanding it completely in a way that makes sense to you, you're going to be copying the way that somebody else did it. You see how our like learning gets distorted so early in life? We get told how to do things constantly instead of how to see them. We get told, draw this, then this, then this, and you have an eye. Draw this, and draw this, and you have a face. So instead of being told, A, observe an object for the basic shape that it is, and then see what type of, skin or like texture you need to add to be able to make it something that you want. A mouth, an eye, a face, anything, right? You take the basic shape and you understand how to turn that into something cute with your imagination. That is the goal. It's not to copy and be told how to achieve it. You need to just be told how to see them so that you can take that dexterity that you've been practicing your whole life with all your cartoons and copying other people. You can take that dexterity and now apply it to something inside your head instead of just strictly to something that is copied from somebody else's mind. Meaning Cho is better to you than photorealism. Yes, I do. I believe that Frank Cho has a fantastic, amazing repertoire. And he can do photorealism too. So it's not like I'm choosing that, but it's more like I choose his cartooning and editorial style over his photorealism or anybody's photorealism because it takes a little bit of creativity, right? If you mix photorealism with your imagination, like a lot of people do with fantasy work and stuff like that, ooh, that's amazing. That's absolutely lovely. And it shows and demonstrates a lot of skill. When you're just copying somebody as a replica, like a photo or something like that, that's amazing too. It's really nice. Don't get me wrong. It's a really tough skill to learn. But it's a lot less imaginative. And it's more of to me, it feels more like a production side of things. Like, it's like, okay, I just need to get to the end goal. I already know what the end goal is. I don't have to imagine anything. I just have to learn the techniques to get there. Right? So if I think about it like that, it's like, okay, cool. I already know where I have to go. But with a cartoon, with a comic, with anything like that, you don't know that. You don't know where you're supposed to end up. You're supposed to come up with everything. So it's a lot harder, in my opinion, to be able to do something like that because it's just not anywhere else in the world. It has never existed. So if it's never existed, how are you going to mimic it? How are you going to replicate it? How are you going to do that unless you have an explicit amount of talent to be able to bring something to life that doesn't exist? And that is why I find it incredibly, incredibly cool that anybody that can draw from their memory or from their imagination is, to me, a top level artist, regardless of their skill level. If you're able to take anything in your brain and put it on paper, you are creating something that has never existed before. Never. And you can make entire worlds, entire universes, entire subcultures in the world by just pushing it and showing people what you've done. I love hearing you talk, though. I love hopping in and hopping in. Hey, thank you, man. Understand that you guys are awesome. You guys have an amazing little baby superpower. Okay? How you choose to use it and take advantage of it is up to you. No one else can force you to take advantage of this. No one. No one will ever care if you do or not. Except you. You and you alone will always have the key to being like important, to being valued, to being loved, to caring about what you do. It's all about you. It's not about how other people feel about your art. It's about you. It's not about how other people see your art. It's about you. And if you learn little by little to take some pride in that, all right, that is the hardest lesson that you'll probably ever learn as an artist. Learning that other people's opinion doesn't really matter. You have a power that no one else has. No one else has your power. No one else can see things like you. And if you box that up so that you can draw like someone else, man, that just seems like such a waste, don't you? How the Drawbook coming along, but How the Drawbook has been paused for a while. More like, I had to, unfortunately, I had to take more freelance work. Yep, I had to take freelance work. It is for Marvel. So it's not like it's a bad freelance work, but I had to take freelance work because I'm running low on funds because it's just taking a little longer to kickstart this stuff than I thought. And it's, yeah. So not that I'm like in any dire like need of anything, but it's just interesting. So hopefully it doesn't get deterred too much. Okay, hopefully it doesn't get deterred too much and I can like hop on it before the end of the year, hopefully getting like a nice big outline of it so that I can start just putting steps forward in that direction. Because if I don't start putting steps forward, then again, no one will push me. No one will care. Right? Like this is a very apparent thing in the art world. You are your biggest fan. You will always be your biggest fan. You will never have a bigger fan than you. Okay? And if you are not putting yourself out there like you should, like promoting yourself, talking good about yourself, making sure that you stay healthy and happy and motivated, then no one else will do it. They'll tell you, oh, it's okay. Oh, no, it's all right. You'll get back on your feet. Blah, 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 blah. They'll give you all that bullshit. Venom? Venom's easy. Let's see. There was a time where I would be afraid of drawing things like Venom because it's, oh, the jaw structure, oh, it's so weird. Oh. But nah, nowadays it's just like once you learn, again, once you learn how to draw a jaw from a box, not many things throw you off anymore. Depends on how you want your jaw structure. Yeah, there's very little things that like intimidate you once you learn the basic structure. It's things become a little bit easier in general. Everything just becomes easier in general. So it's if you learn volume, you can learn perspective easy, right? So if you learn how to create volume on things, you can create perspective. By learning volume, you just have to draw objects inside of objects and then using that to draw a surface. Okay, that's essentially the step one to learning perspective. Learning how to draw an object inside and then choosing a side of it which will be a surface. So when you're learning about these things, it's going to be annoying and it's going to be boring because you're going to have to draw a lot of circles. You're going to have to draw a lot of elements that you don't really care about. You're going to have to learn how to intersect lines so you can create surfaces. Because doing things like that is what allow you to later on be able to use those guidelines to draw things like eyes and stuff like that. Okay, understanding basic volume, very basic volume, can guide you to be able to draw your elements properly in space. So, understanding the concept of volume and depth is more important than understanding your whole sets of anatomy and muscle structures and shit. Like, you don't need to learn how to draw all the muscles of the arm, right? You don't need to. It's cool if you do, but you don't need to do that if you just learn how to overlap two lines. This is much more important because learning how to overlap two lines properly gives you all that too. You just have to add the muscles later. But understanding the very core of it to an expert level will always facilitate the learning of the next levels. So if you want to draw superheroes and shit, yeah, if you want to draw big muscles and all, you want to be Dragon Ball Z characters and stuff, you need to understand the very basic structures of the egg and the compass so that you can draw your elements as big and as buff as you want. Or as little and as dainty as you want them. I just need to do more work until it clicks. Yep. I can know it all. Understanding comes from self-analysis. So let's say that you draw this. Let's draw a circle, right? We'll draw, okay. I'm going to draw two legs. The rod said go outside and then inside. And then stop and be like, okay, what did I just draw? I drew a little cone. If I draw little lines, I can make it into a leg. Cool. What happens if I make this shorter? Oh, the space becomes too big. Okay, so now we make it a little bit bigger. Cool. Make a note of that. If it looks good, you make a note of it. Oh, the arm. Okay, I'm gonna go, Rod said, above the rib cage. We go side to side and then go back inside for detail. The same thing as the leg. Cool. What did I just draw? Okay, if I go here, here, this has to be my shoulder, my bicep, my forearm, all that stuff within this space. So when we draw that stuff later, we know that we just have to divide that into sections and we're going to end up with an easier way to get our muscles. Because you'll know that they're supposed to be there. You'll just know, like this teaches you placement. The actual detail and the overlapping lines will teach you the muscle structures. Hey, how's it going, Wes? How you doing, brother? So overlapping lines give you volume. And then your muscle structures come from understanding the subtleties that come along the complicated things that comprise your body. Okay? The muscles are less important than knowing how to just draw this line properly. Because learning how to draw that line properly will help you understand the arm in every direction. But doing this with a lot of detail will limit you if you don't know how to move those elements in space. And then you'll feel like, I don't know how to, I can't draw bodies. I don't like doing it because it's hard. And it's like, oh, yeah, it's fucking hard. It's really hard. Art's not easy. Art was never, ever, ever an easy thing. It's normally, it has been subjected to like people that spend their whole lives trying to master it, right? Before, we used to have apprentices and masters, and you used to spend all your time with the master trying to replicate and learn from him. Now we don't really have that. We have art schools and we have like people that teach like courses and shit like that. So we don't really, we get a lot of recycled information that is recycled from people that don't really understand it themselves. So it's a shitty time to be an artist because we're undervalued and we're not really taught properly. So it's kind of like a bad time in history to be an artist because, again, we're not seen as special, which is really weird because we're the ones that make everybody's dreams come to life. Like, without us, there's no anime. Without us, there's no animation, no MCU. There's no movies. There's no novels. There's no poetry. Right? So I don't understand how the value of an artist has diminished as opposed to increased exponentially over the years. Makes no sense to me, like at all. But that is life. It is what it is, and we have to live with it. Anyways, my friends, I believe we are done with our page for today. We have one more page to fill out if I don't feel like doing it with Post-its. We have 2 more pages that we can do in this sketchbook. And then we have to go through and walk through the whole thing and make sure that everything that I don't like gets covered with a Post-it and drawn over. In this case, I do not like this sketch right here. So I'm going to cover this and I'm going to do something cool with it later. But anyways, you guys have a lovely day. You guys have an amazing Sunday. Brittany, thank you for always being supportive. Mr. West, Mr. West is another moderator of us, and he is a teacher as well. So you guys can go learn from him in his channel, normally before mine. And you guys are awesome. You guys kick butt. I'll see you guys sometime soon, and enjoy your days, my friends. I love ya. Take care. And this book will be out on sale once it gets scanned and uploaded and stuff. And then the other raw art book will be uploaded to Amazon. Shit, maybe today. Yeah, maybe I can do that today. No, that'd be fun. I might do that. But you guys awesome. Love y'all. Bye.